Hi, everybody. If you don't know me, my name is Mateo Chavez-Lewis. I'm a music director and composer in the theater industry, and like everyone in the theater industry, I was absolutely devastated last week to hear of the passing of Gavin Creel. Gavin was a staple on Broadway, a Tony Award winner, but more important than that, I think, he was a mentor. A truly generous and kind human being by all accounts. I posted a video last week on this channel talking about the time that Gavin Creel came to my high school and just how generous he was with his time and his energy and his spirit and how inspiring that was to me as a kid. But that didn't feel like enough. I wanted to honor Gavin in some other way on this channel. If you know me, you'll know that every week I post analyses of musical theater songs on this channel. I go through the music theory behind your favorite music theater songs. If you don't know me, by the way, and that's your vibe, you should subscribe to this channel because that's what that's all about. So I wanted to analyze a song that Gavin Creel sang. This particular song is very special to me because in 2009, Gavin Creel played Claude in the Broadway revival of Hair. Another thing that happened in 2009 was that I took my very first voice lesson at the age of 10 years old. And my voice teacher, for some reason, one of the first songs he assigned to me was Where Do I Go? From Hair. And so before I knew who Gavin Creel was, before I knew who any Broadway star was, I was listening to Gavin Creel's voice singing this song on the Broadway cast album. So that's what I want to look at today. This song, Where Do I Go? From Hair. We start with these chords. And Claude sings, Where do I go? Follow the river. Where do I go? Follow the gulls. Where is the something? Where is the someone that tells me why I live and die? Lovely. These first chords are very interesting. So D minor, G7. Those are the first two chords of something called a 2-5-1. 2-5-1. That's a very, very standard little chord turnaround in jazz. The 2 chord leads very nicely to the 5 chord, leads very nicely to the 1 chord, and it feels all resolved because we're on the first chord in the scale. We're in the key of C major right now, so C is the home note of the scale, it's the home note of the key, and C major is the home chord. So it feels very final, very resolved. However, you'll notice we don't get a C chord right away. Instead of going D minor, G7, C, like the 2-5-1 would have you expect, instead we get D minor, G7, and then just D minor, G7, and then it repeats ad lib, so it can loop over and over and over, and probably some staging business will happen here with Claude drawing his draft card, right? We're just getting this loop, and we never get the resolution to the C, at least not yet. So if the 2-5-1 has a clear direction, a clear destination, it knows where it's going. This 2-5, without the one at the end, doesn't seem to know where it's going, and the song is called Where Do I Go, right? It's perfect. Here we do get a resolution to C, right? We get it twice. But then we go to G minor C, which is the 2-5-1 in a different key. When I say 2-5-1, I mean it's the second chord in the key, then the 5th chord in the key, and then the 1st chord in the key. So in C major, the second note of C major is D, so it's the D minor chord. Then the 5th note in C major is G, so it's the G major chord, and then the 1, of course, is C major. So in C major, a 2-5-1 is D minor, G, C. However, in F major, The second note of the scale is G. The fifth note of the scale is C. And the first note of the scale, of course, is F. So, in a 2-5-1 in F major, the C isn't the home chord, the C isn't the resolution, the C is the 5 chord. And that's kind of what we're getting here because of this G minor. In the key of C major, the B is natural, which makes the G chord major. In the key of F major, the B is flat, which makes the G chord minor. Here we're using a B flat. So even though the key signature isn't changing, it sounds like we're going to F major because we're using that B flat that appears in the F major chord. So we get this feeling that we're moving to F major with this 2-5-1 in the key of F major, and then we resolve to F at the very end. So it kind of makes it feel, in retrospect, like this C major resolution was a cheat, was not a real resolution, was a false resolution, right? And that adds to this feeling of we don't know where we're going. We have D minor, G, D minor, C. Okay, that feels like a resolution. D minor, G7, C. That feels like a resolution. But then we go to G minor, and suddenly that C doesn't feel so resolved because after G minor, C a few times, this F feels like that's actually the real resolution. So in this whole verse section, there's a lot of false resolutions, 2-5-1s that don't end up resolving to the 1, 2-5s going back and forth, a lot of kind of lack of direction in the chords. I should also mention, the reason that I'm focusing on analyzing the chords and not note for note what's written in the piano part is that the piano part here is just really a representation of the guitar parts and the bass parts and the voice all kind of in one shebang. It's not really written to be played as a piano part. It's a rock-influenced musical. In rock music, the chords are the really important part, and the specific notes are a little bit less important than, say, in classical piano music. So this kind of music is not written to be played on piano, and the notes written are not written to be super, super specific. They're written to give the player a little bit of room for improvisation, and so the chord symbols that I've added into the sheet music here, that's actually more important to analyze in this style of music, in my opinion. So here we get this little symbol, these two little dots before the bar line. That means repeat. So we go all the way back to here, and we have a repeat of the same melody with different lyrics and the same chords. This kind of combines Broadway and rock music in a really effective way, because rock music loves to repeat the verses, but Broadway music likes to do what's called an AABA song form, where we have a section that we label A, we repeat it twice, then we have a middle section that provides contrast, which is different, which we label B, and then we come back to the same section of music from before, which we label A again. So we have A, A, B, A. Here we have two A sections because we have this section of music, and then we literally just repeat it exactly as it is. This brings me to the point, though, of like kind of one of the difficulties of using rock music in musical theater, which is all kinds of pop music, rock music being one of those. The goal of it is to kind of capture a moment and explode a single feeling. But in musical theater, we want to tell a story. We want to move from point A to B, so we want things to change. But pop music and rock music have an incentive to kind of stay the same and repeat. So there's this conflict always between rock music and the traditions of rock music and then the traditions of musical theater. The answer in this song, in most productions of Hair, is the staging. The staging continues to tell the story while the music repeats exactly as it did before. Where do I go? Follow the river. Where do I go? Follow the children, sorry, is the second verse. Where do I go? Follow their smiles. Is there an answer in their sweet faces that tells me why I live and die? Then we go to, this is the B section. This is total Broadway, where we now, after having two A sections that were the same, we now have a B section which is different and provides contrast. We have follow the wind song, follow the thunder, follow the neon in young lovers' eyes. Weird, what's happening here? We get these triplets here, and this F to E flat gesture. That's going to be important later, so remember the sound of this. Then here, we go from F to F sharp minor, which kind of feels a little bit random almost. Like there is no key in all of standard Western tonal music. There's no single key that includes F major and F sharp minor at the same time. So it's kind of a strange sequence of chords. But what it does is it keeps this A the same, and then every other note moves up a semitone. So when we go from F to F sharp minor, it feels like this kind of surprising lift that doesn't tie in our brains to anything we've heard necessarily before, but the fact that almost every note in the chord is just moving up that semitone gives it an extra boost of energy suddenly. And that also applies to the vocal line, who's now singing a B natural in this bar. Follow the neon, instead of before he was singing a B flat. Follow the thunder. So again, we're raising up a semitone in the vocal line and in the chords. Then this sets up actually a 2-5-1 in the key of E minor, or in the key of, yeah, F sharp minor, B7, E minor. There we go. Then E minor uses the same notes as G major, which is all of the white notes except this F sharp. G major is the exact same, so it makes a lot of sense for us to go from E minor to G major. And then we get this same F to E flat kind of musical idea with the triplets, but now it's just moved up a tone. So instead of going F to E flat, now we're going G to F. So it's the same idea, just moved higher on the piano, and that again builds the energy and leads us towards the return of the verse. It leads us towards the answer. He's asking all of these questions, and we're raising up, we're building up the tension, which leads us forward. Down to the gutter, up to the glitter, into the city where the truth lies. Where do I go? And then we're back to exactly the same melody as before, that A section again. The exact same melody as before with the exact same chords in the exact same key. But now the tribe is joining in. Follow the children, where do I go? Follow their smiles. Is there an answer in their sweet faces that tells me why I live and die? Follow the wind song. So now we're getting into kind of more of a rock and roll song form where we're bringing back the B section, and that makes the B section feel a little bit more like a chorus. We're getting a repeat of the same kind of musical idea that we had before with the F to the E flat and the triplets and this melody. Follow the thunder. Here's this lift. Follow the neon in young lovers' eyes. Down to the gutter. Up to the glitter. Into the city where the truth lies. One last time. Same thing. Same chords. Same melody. Different lyrics this time. So that's musical theater style. Things are changing, things are developing. The character has more intense questions, deeper questions, and that kind of is a change from before. The character is going on a journey. He's moving closer to the truth, closer to the answer, rather than just staying in one place, which is kind of the tradition of pop and rock. Where do I go? Follow my heartbeat. Where do I go? Follow my hand. Where will they lead me? And will I ever discover why I live and die? Then we have this F to C chord progression that repeats over and over, and that's what's called a plagal cadence, which is used in church music a lot, right? Amen! That's that sound. So it makes it feel very sacred. He's asking these questions. It's almost like he's asking these questions to God, or to whatever he conceptualizes God to be, to the universe. And the tribe is kind of echoing him. The tribe is backing him up here because they all have these same questions inside themselves. Why I live and die. Why? Then we have this section. So before we had this idea, right? Then we developed that idea. We moved it up to here. Now we're going to develop it even further. We're going to move it down this time. And instead of going from a major chord to a major chord, here we went from F major to E flat major. Here we went from G major to F major. Instead of going from a major chord to a major chord, we're going to start on a minor chord. But otherwise it's going to be the same rhythm, right? With these triplets. But just making it minor instead of major gives it a darkness, a forebodingness, makes us feel as the audience that Claude is headed towards something terrible, and spoiler alert, he is. And at the end of the song, when we end on this D minor and this really dark feeling of D minor C, which is all we get for the rest of the song, we never go back to the previous chord progressions, we just have this outro of D minor C, D minor C, D minor C, looping over and over, and it's this dark, scary feeling. And when we get to the end, landing on that minor chord, blackout, end of Act 1, intermission, because it ended on that minor chord, we all want to come back and see what's going to happen. We're scared of what's going to happen in Act 2. As opposed to if it ended on a major chord, we would all feel like everything was fine and dandy, and he would figure it out, and we don't need to come back for Act 2. That like, ending on the minor chord, ending on that cliffhanger, makes us all want to come back for Act 2 after intermission's done. So we have this ending where we have this conflict between the darkness that Claude is experiencing and then these words that the tribe is singing: flowers, freedom, happiness, beads, flowers, freedom, happiness, beads, flowers, freedom. All of these things that they're fighting for, but something about it rings false. Claude wants these things. The tribe is telling him he can have these things, but for some reason we feel like he still needs to fight for these things. He doesn't have them yet. Why do we feel that way? Because they're singing them on a minor chord. They're literally singing flowers, freedom, happiness on a minor chord. That's very different from if they were like, flowers, freedom, happiness, on a major chord. The fact that they're on a minor chord makes us feel like Claude still has to fight for these things. He's in jeopardy. He's in danger of losing these things. And he ends singing, why do I live? Why do I die? Tell me where do I go? Etc., etc. And he ends with, tell me why. The band cuts out, and we hold this silence where the tribe is singing freedom in a chord. He's singing, tell me why, on this high note, and then the band comes in, boom, for this dramatic ending. Now, this is high enough. Tell me why, on that F, that is the key it was in originally. But when Gavin Creel sang this on Broadway, they moved it up a tone. So by the end, he was singing, tell me where, tell me why, tell me where, tell me why! And that high G is what ended Act 1. It's just amazing to listen to. Listening to this song, you know, in preparation for this recording of this video, it was kind of, you know, meta and kind of upsetting, to be honest, to hear Gavin Creel singing the words, why do I die? Because, you know, it's kind of what we're all asking right now. Like, he really, really was one of the best, and I can't believe he's gone. So thank you, Gavin, for everything that you gave us. And thank you for watching this. I hope you learned something. I hope you grew to appreciate this song even more, so that the next time you listen to Gavin's voice singing it, you'll have a deeper understanding of what makes that song so great. That's what I endeavor to do here on this channel. Music Theater Theory. Whoa. See you next week.